Okay.
Ooh, official. Okay, it's going?
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Hi, guys.
Hi.
Hello.
Welcome to another book buzz discussion.
All
So
right.
we have the three of us this month. Finally, that's fun.
Mm-hmm.
This is exciting.
Yeah. How have you guys been? Just gonna.
Good.
Been good. Ooh, bubbly. Yeah, I like it.
Oh,
Yeah,
Smart, your cat.
I'm gonna have to get you a mug. I will order you one. Sorry, I just had to put that in there. So this,
I should grab mine.
you go grab it. Yeah, it's
No,
you gotta have a beverage for our discussions.
no.
Yeah, so we're discussing the Priory of the Orange Tree. Ooh, yeah, I don't actually have the book, so it's nice to see it. So pretty.
It's got a really nice shiny cover. Like my sister, she picks her books based on how shiny they are, and she considered reading this until she saw how thick it was.
Yeah.
Honestly, I haven't held it in real life, so just seeing that, like, wow.
Yeah,
Holy
I also
thing.
had the ebook, so I didn't realize how big it was.
Compared to
Wow.
some of like a regular book, it's like
My God, we're so ambitious. Honestly,
tried-
this book has been on my radar, like, ever since I saw it in the bookstore, so I'm glad we decided to do it, because
yeah, it just took us a little bit longer because it is
a little bit.
so massive.
And I will say, I think having the ebook was not the right call for this book specifically, because you couldn't refer to the map, and I definitely got lost in the geography of this place and how big everything was supposed to be and how far it was, because I couldn't just quickly flip back and be like, oh, okay. I was like, well, I thought it was a lot farther, but they're already there, so I don't know.
Which is funny because I didn't look at the map once,
Really?
even though it was available to me. Just like, oh
I
no.
looked at it a few times, but I predominantly use the audiobook, so if you need help with like any of the pronunciations, I feel like I got them down.
Okay, that's good because, as we know, I butcher pronunciations.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Should probably have it. Okay, I'm gonna open it up just in case we
Okay, so
need to reference it. Okay, I am gonna confess I didn't finish the book, so this will be my first discussion. I haven't finished the book, but I've finished halfway, so I'm happy to discuss like everything up until then, and then don't be afraid to spoil it, guys.
Okay.
I actually want to know what happens, so I can like, I guess, guide the discussion after that point, or you guys can take the lead, but
Mhm.
yeah.
So speaking of pronunciation of names and stuff, I was thinking, I was like, is there really a main character? And they kind of pushed that there is, but it's not really, it's not consistent. Like if I had to pick a main character, I was pronouncing it Eid in my head,
That's how I was pronouncing it.
but how did the
Okay.
audiobook say it?
The audiobook is Iad.
Yeah.
So Iadaz is her name.
Yeah.
And so we also have Queen Sabran, or Sab.
Yep.
So that might be.
I said it that way, so that's good.
Okay, good.
I was Sabrin in my head, but I'll take that
I
way.
started Sabrin when I was like just reading it on the audiobook and then, or on my Kobo. So yeah, it's kind of hard to know how to pronounce it, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Albrecht Lievlin was his name, is King Albrecht Lievlin. And then there's Lord Ardeloth Beck.
Yep.
Kitson, I forget his last name, like Watts or something.
He dies surprisingly early.
Yeah.
So sad.
That
Okay.
was a surprise.
So I guess we could get into it, like our structure.
Why don't we start with trying to summarize this
Okay,
book?
well, somebody who's finished the book, somebody summarize it.
There's multiple characters. So there's, how did you say it? Iad?
Iad, yeah.
Okay, so she's like part of the secret society. And she is being like working in far across the land, in the palace, to, what's her name? Sabran?
Yeah, Sabran.
Sabran. Where she ends up actually like moving through the ranks, and like Sabran is the queen. She's a generational line of queens, and they think that she will keep these dragons that are supposed to come back at bay, these high dragons. So she's done that. So she's secretly working her way up. Then we also have this character Tane. That's how I was saying it. Is that right?
Tane.
Yeah.
Okay, Tane. That would make more sense. Tane. Okay. Which is like across the land, and they have a very different view of dragons. They love their dragons, but they're sea dragons. So they kind of have this common enemy as high dragons. And she wants to like work with them, and she's trained her whole life, and she does. But there's this red plague that like wipes out all these people, and she lets a guy in the city, and then eventually that comes back to kind of haunt her, and she gets kicked out of the program, and then goes on this whole mission to get her dragon back.
Jumping in on that, was it a little jarring for anyone else to be like 30 pages in and we're talking about plague and quarantine and masks and stuff?
Hold on, Christine's frozen on my end here.
Oh yeah, it just froze here.
Is she frozen for you, Sophie?
So I also thought that the red plague, it was a fun idea, and then it never came up ever again. And there was travel, and there were no consequences.
Right. Okay. I noticed that too, and I was like, someone's gonna die, and like they're gonna be. I guess, yeah.
And it was made as such a big thing that Tene broke quarantine or her like isolation, I think they called it.
Yeah.
That she like went and found that rando stranger who was also pretty inconsequential to the. I didn't care about that guy, and then he died, and I didn't really care.
Yeah.
And then there's just like travel everywhere, and everyone's like teaming up together for the final battle. And for all the laws that seem to be in place to protect the East, like everyone was fine and there was no issues.
But I wonder if that's kind of like the real world though. Like maybe it was such an issue before, and then like it's not as much anymore because it's been years.
Kind of how what's happening now, where like if something that's going on for so long, how complacent people can be.
Scary.
Isn't it crazy that this book was published only in 2019? So like right
when it was happening.
Right when this started. Or I guess the pandemic started in like December 2019.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like how crazy, the red sickness, they have to like wear cloth over their face.
Yeah, they think it's airborne.
No. Do I want to read about this? But yeah, you're right. It like never.
And I feel like that is a good example of some things that I think were a weakness in the book, that she keeps, I think the author is a female?
Yes.
She keeps setting up all these things that could be interesting, but that don't really get explored fully, and that like once they sort of start to get to the interesting bit, then they go away. So there's the red plague. There's like, we don't really see a lot of what the dragon, sorry?
The mysterious stranger who was snuck in.
Yeah, and then, yeah, absolutely. Yep. And there was like the conspiracy that killed Obrecht, and there was the girl who was a part of the insurrection who was working for Sabran. Yep. And I don't think she got in trouble. I think there was like a thing to like to be merciful for her, and I don't think there were consequences. Oh, it was Trudy. Oh no, she died. I'm sorry.
She died.
She did die. Which
if you didn't know.
But it was presented as a thing where like they were like, no, you shouldn't kill her, and like Iad thought that they were being harsh by punishing her. I'm like, she helped like lead to the thing that killed the new king.
The king.
Yeah.
I see it.
Yeah.
Like,
so just to be clear, I'm halfway, somewhere like 470 or whatever. So I got to the part where Nicolas Ruse just got onto like the pirate ship, and Iad had to flee the Queen of Innis, I believe it is. So
and I'm not so at the end it's this whole convoluted journey where he goes to he ends up with like the pirates, and he and he goes around and he ends up like helping like the pirates find their another thing of like immortality, and so he goes around and it's this whole thing that I don't really
sorry,
it's all good. And I can't tell if he's supposed to have a redemption arc or not, because he's not particularly likable and he's not that helpful, and does he kind of help at the end and then the book just ends?
he brings the peace and doesn't kill her, so
Yeah.
the sword piece, or like piece of the same material as the sword. And it comes in handy. Okay, what I didn't like is at the end, like it worked out too perfectly.
Absolutely.
Like I was so ready because like some people had already died, and I was like, okay, like happy ending, but somebody needs to be like maimed or sick and like stay sick, or like somebody needs to die.
Yeah, because some people died throughout the
consequences.
book, but not enough people died for it to be
Right.
sad. I know, and you never want a good character to die, but the fact that nobody died, and you were like,
Especially
okay.
at the end there.
Wait, at the end, nobody dies?
Nobody dies.
No.
Oh,
There's like the big showdown with like all the dragons, and then like the giant dragon. And this is
I
a couple times. There was like no huge climax that made it hard. It was like big dragon showed up, and then they just killed it, and then that was it, and we were happy. And it was about page long.
So coming from the perspective of not having finished it, I was chatting with Sophie earlier, and I was like, these are my predictions of what I think is gonna happen. So they always mention that like the main dragon, or like Fyredale or whatever, if you kill the main dragon, all the like ones under them die. So I was like, okay, they're definitely gonna go on like a mission to kill like the main one.
Yeah,
that didn't even happen. Like all the ones underneath him didn't die, they just scattered.
Oh yeah, that's right.
That prediction was wrong, even though they hyped on it the whole book.
I also really want to see in fiction, I really wanted to see this with Game of Thrones. I really wanted Daenerys Targaryen to sacrifice everything and die like for the good of the realm. So I was like, okay, maybe that might happen. Like Queen Sabran, she lost her child. Like I think she lost her child, right?
Barren.
She's barren. So that's a really important aspect of like continuing on the queendom that she has. So I was like, oh, like maybe she's gonna like, I want to see a sacrifice for the good of the kingdom or queendom.
Oh yeah, and at the end, there's this whole thing about like barriers coming down with the East and the West, and like prejudices and from religion like getting torn down, so everyone comes together to fight the common threat. And for some reason, the emperor in the East is incredibly progressive, and that he's like, yeah, I'll make a connection with the West, even though traditionally it's done with marriage. But in this case, she's in love with someone, so that's okay. We're just gonna like make an alliance, and just it works out too well. And I noticed it a few times in the book where they meet someone who's like in a position of power, but seems to be kind of blasé about their position. And like Tane shows up at the end and is talking to the emperor, and the emperor is like, Tane, walk with me. I like to hear stories. And then it's just an example of when she just does that to give a bunch of exposition. And he's like, I like stories. Humor me. Tell me your story. And it happened a couple times. I think it was when someone was in the Priory. There was also someone who was like, tell me your story. I love stories. So Bran does it to Ead at the beginning, and she's like, just tell me the story. And it just like, oh, okay, here's a few pages of exposition. And it was not fun for me. I was like, that's boring.
Yeah. Well, what was fun? Like, what was your most favorite like part, I guess? Was there any area where you were like, oh, I want to see what happens next, or like what was your favorite part then?
I think she did a good job still having like creating this political landscape. Like, yes, sometimes it was really boring to read about, and I'm like, where is this going? Why do I need this? And some of it was still like more than like what I needed to know. But having all these different areas and their different beliefs and how like it could be twisted but similar, I think she did a good job with that.
I agree.
I think so too. Yeah.
I liked the fact that they had a big source of tension between the East and the West was the difference in religions. And I liked that there was like both of their sides were fundamentally opposed. Like one of them is worshiping dragons, and the other side, it was like dragons, even though they weren't talking about quite the same type of dragon, but like that it wasn't just an easy thing where being like, just get over your differences and come together. Like it was like a legitimate source of conflict for both sides. And that one of them, the origin story of the religion, was in conflict with like Ead's how she was
Origin
raised.
story.
And so I liked that there was like the level of like detail with each of them that had that was like not an easy thing to get over. And like Loth had a lot of hard times with his faith when there was stuff that he learned that was contrary to what he thought the religion was. I like that it wasn't just, oh, I actually don't care about this anymore, religion is stupid. It was like, oh, this is a challenge to my ideas and beliefs, and I'm going to show that it's a struggle, and like we're going to work through it. And like then they still came together and worked as a team, but that part didn't just get dropped immediately for sake of plot.
Yeah. And I think that's what made it so well, and why I struggled with the ending there, is because like the Emperor in that didn't have any of that struggle.
None.
It was just
incredibly
like,
progressive.
sure, we'll just get together and take this on.
Mm-hmm. It kind of felt like by the end, she was like, okay, I don't want to write more conflict. Just like, let it work out. And I, like the publisher's waiting on this. I just got to end it.
Yeah, she was done with it.
Yeah. Crazy how, do you think it's good as a standalone, or do you think it should have been like more than one?
I think it should have been more than one, because the first 200 pages were exposition, and there was so much setup that I was like struggling to just get into it, be like, okay, is stuff gonna start happening now? I feel like she just set up all the base stuff and then had stuff happen. So at first it was literally just like snapshots of like not much. Okay, now stuff. And by that time, I'm like, okay, you better make this worth it. I read so much about your world.
I honestly feel like I don't remember the first 50 pages. Like once I hit like 70 pages, I felt like we were getting into the story and the action of things.
I don't think I even got into it until it was like 200 pages. And I was like, okay, now I'm somewhat engaged. I'm more curious than like, I need to read this.
Mm-hmm.
But I think it could have been split into probably like a trilogy.
Agreed.
And like some of the setup of like, you could have done it as like East versus West versus South.
I guess if you were to set it up as a trilogy, would it be satisfying, like having to wait for book 2 and then book 3? Is it a good enough ending that it's like,
I think it has the potential. It's just like she got tired of writing and everything worked out perfectly, and like if it had been split into 3, she might have put more effort into that ending, kind of. I mean, there was some kind of twists, which was nice, but
I guess it can be difficult to end novels. So I feel like a lot of the books that we've read, a lot of it ties up, like when you look at House of Dragons. I know you didn't read House of Dragons, Sophie, but looking back for House of Dragons, was that a memorable ending?
I have no idea right now how I don't remember.
I don't remember either. So it was like, maybe would you say it was like a memorable ending, or like what was memorable about this book in particular? Like what, I think we've been talking about a lot, like maybe what's like not great with it, but maybe what did you take from this book? Because I know it's supposed to be like a feminist outlook on traditional structures of fantasy writing and tropes and stuff like that. So maybe, do you think she did maybe a good job in that sense? Like maybe the fact that this emperor, though I didn't get to this part, was so like willing to not have like the marriage aspect, like maybe that was her commentary, or
maybe. I think she did a good job in creating like a very detailed fantasy world where most of the main characters were female. So I think that was like the big twist, is it like, yes, we had Loth and he is a male character and he's well written, but they did have these different female characters with all very different personalities and like approaches to duty, and very all duty driven as well, which I find is often rare, where it's like, no, this is what I have to do. And people are like, a lot of females are written as wishy-washy, but I didn't find that in this book. They were all strong characters.
So, okay, this is a good question then. How would both of you describe Queen Sabran then? Because I feel like Sophie might have an opposing.
So I feel like there were a lot of like strong female characters, and you're like absolutely, Christine, I appreciated that she gave them all distinct personalities, that they didn't all feel like the same person. I feel like with Sabran, with Iad, there were a few times where the way they're written, it just seems like they just know everything. Like I wrote down like a few quotes and stuff that it just sort of seemed like Iad, she was writing Iad to be like one step ahead of everything all the time. So I feel like it almost strayed too far in the other direction of making them like just like have too much of a leg up on everything. And kind of ironically, I feel like she didn't really write good male characters. Like Loth was like, he was fun, but he didn't have a strong personality. There was that guy in the Priory, and I can't even remember his name. It has a Q. And he's just kind of like a guy who shows up and helps Iad a little bit. Other than that, he doesn't have a role. There's the evil spy master in the palace who was kind of fun, but he also didn't figure too big in the grand scheme of things. And so I just feel like it went the other way. And even like with the pirates, like there was the female pirate who is the head of it. I feel like she dropped some F-bombs in there to make her seem tough, but I'm like, I had a hard time taking her seriously as a tough. I was like, this is like what, like when I was being edgy in 13, that's how I talked, and like it doesn't make me scared of this pirate.
Yeah, she just flipped it, so all the poorly written characters ended up being male, which was a nice change, but I don't really want that. I want them all to be well written.
Yeah, and Nicholas
Ruse.
Yeah, like that, he was the only male character that had more, you could hear more of his backstory, but he was like cowardly and whiny and selfish and like old and decrepit and just waiting to die most of it. And then at the end, he's like, wait, I want to be a good guy for like a second. And his whole redemption is that he was in love with someone at one point, and like he's working to like do right by his memory. And
that's his whole story. And it's like, yes, like you can be in love in that, but that's not someone's entire story. Like there should be more to him. But
I do think it's interesting now that we're talking about it that none of the, like other than Sabran, none of the women in this like get married. Well, I get that there's the one like maid, like servant to Sabran, but they don't get married. Like it's not focused on their relationships with men other than like Sabran and her duty.
Also, like produce an heir as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Like her only value lied in her producing a child, which is usually the case in these kind of like fantasy or like king, queen, you know, they need to secure an heir to the throne. But she can't do that. Yeah, it's kind of like a commentary on all of that.
Yeah, I didn't like that.
And I did like that they showed her struggling with duty, but also being scared of like marriage and pregnancy and childbirth. And so she put off getting married and having an heir for so long. I like that they had that. And I feel like it gave a different nuance to the whole like female royalty has to get married and produce an heir. It like, because in real life and for centuries, that's what happened. Women would just have to, their whole point was to make babies. And I like that it kind of humanized that process where there was probably a bunch of women in there who were scared, who didn't want to marry that person, who didn't want to have children right away, who didn't want children at all. And I kind of, I just liked that it wasn't like, oh, she was doing her duty and happy about it.
Yeah.
Especially within history, how young women used to get married off and expected to have children. So the fact that she was, I think Sabran's like 28 or something in this.
Yeah.
Something like that.
It's more like modern. It's like people tend to wait now longer as well. But yeah, like that human side to her. What was your, sorry, did you have something to say on that, Christine, before I asked a question?
Okay. You guys got it covered.
Who was your favorite of the characters? Is there anybody in particular that stood out?
I feel like probably Iad, because we got to spend the most time with her and she had the most variety in terms of her settings and the different thought processes. Like, I didn't like that she was like a perfect fighter. She was like a perfect she's like a special mage. She was a perfect servant. She
didn't have many challenges other than like, oh, you believe something different.
Yeah. And like she could catch all of the assassins that were trying to kill Sabran like effortlessly and nobody knew, and she could just murder someone and then like slip back into like her role as like what lady of the bedchamber or something and be like, oh no, someone died, and nobody suspected and she never got caught and she could like sense people. That was a little rough, but I think I liked her best just because we got to see more of inside her head. And Tane, I thought was kind of one-dimensional. Like her whole thing was being a dragon rider and being a fighter. And you heard about her backstory, but her entire thought process when you were in her head was like, gotta do right, gotta like be honorful. There's a word for it. Honorable, thank you. You know, gotta be a fighter, gotta be the best. And like she got her friend killed. She like there were things, and they talk about her guilt, but other than that, it's just after that she gets into like a depression because she's no longer a dragon rider and she's dishonored, and then she just like saves the world at the end, but she's sort of one note the whole way.
Do you think then there was like, because I feel like there was a lot of good characters, but there was just too many. Like maybe if we had more time to develop Tane, and
I feel like you could cut her out from this book and still have a good story.
Yeah.
Other than at the ending, like that she, like, so they needed the one jewel and it was sewn into her side. Other than like that, she didn't really play any huge role. And like she helped steal the boat and like get them there, but
yeah, it's like almost this weird side adventure of like this one person trying to achieve becoming a dragon rider, and it could almost be like a separate book within the world itself.
Yeah,
maybe. I guess I don't know how it ties in with the end, so I can't really.
Yeah, it could have been a separate book.
So the whole thing, I don't know, Jacqueline, if you got this far, but Tane like has this like lump in her side and it gets cut out of her and they find out it's this jewel. And basically the whole thing is that it's the other half of like, there's like two jewels and they represent the two types of energy. One is like the fire energy of the mages. The other is like the moon energy that stars. Yeah. And so it's like the two types of like forces that balance the whole world. And based on that, and so, Tane is the star energy and Iad is the fire, earth.
Yeah.
She finds it in the Priory. She finds the jewel and touches it. It's hers.
And so they get together and they don't get together. I mean, they like unite in like battle against the main dragon, and like with this like sword, they kill him, and that's how it ends. And with that idea of the balance of the two sides, and it was a lack of balance that created the like evil dragons to begin with. I feel like they should have just made the 2 points of view, Iad and Tane, focused entirely on that. Because the other points of view was Nicholas and Loth, I think was the fourth one, right?
Yeah.
And you really didn't need I feel like you could have smushed their stories into like peripheral stuff. Like I think 2 points of view, like fire.
Flesh it out a lot more.
Yeah, exactly.
So does Loth, my question for you guys, because the way she was setting it up, it seemed was like Sabran and Loth had like a love affair. Does he ever?
They did not
come back around and like.
He does kind of offer at the end. He's like, if you weren't with her, like, we could do something. But it was more of like, we get along well and we're good friends. I'm supposed to find a wife.
Maybe the reason for that was like to make it almost like maybe his role was like to set up Iad and Sabran being like almost like a surprise in a way, because she has all these like other suitors, and then like I don't know. I don't, like I said, he offers at the end, but whatever really like happens to Loth, is he part of like
he's held hostage with the other king or emperor until they like fulfill their bargain of like sending armies and I think deal.
I think at the end he joins like the royal court and like he gets like a job or something at the palace instead of taking over his family's estate, and his sister runs the estate instead.
But it wasn't clear, but I think
it's like
He wanted to go back to
Oh yeah.
the land with the red plague where there was the queen or the princess who was like ruling and held hostage.
Starlin, I think.
Yeah, princess, like the Don Mata something.
Yes.
Don Marta Morosa.
Yeah. Seems like he's very interested in her.
Ooh.
Yeah. Which also just like goes nowhere. Like they sort of set her up as like this very interesting, like she's secretly trying to overthrow like the presence of the evil dragons in her land. And you're like, wow, this is cool. And then the other guy, Kit dies, and he like forces his way back to like the main storyline. But it sets up like it's gonna be this whole thing, and at the end he's like, I have to go back. And you're like, oh, you mean like a sequel? Like that should have been like multiple books, and that would have been like a sequel. Okay.
Yeah.
So, okay, if we were to just say in like a few sentences what Loth's trajectory was for this whole was just get sent to, I forget, is
sent away.
He gets sent away.
Yeah.
He chats with the Don Marta Morosa and uncovers the secret of, I think the person there was like Sabran's dad.
No, it was
What was
yes, also possibly Sabran's dad, but also figures out that like there's this cupbearer and there's this whole boy to like.
So yeah, like what was his from start to finish his trajectory through this book?
The point of him was that we meet some pirates along the way that we're supposed to care about later on.
Yeah, and bring the case that is important for the Priory because it has the jewel in it.
Okay. Yeah. I was gonna say Ead was also my favorite character.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sorry. Go ahead. I did find the relationship. Sorry.
The talking stick.
Go for it.
I was just gonna say quickly, like I kind of saw Loth as like this Jon Snow type character because he's so honorable and I feel like he's called to duty and he's very like wants to do the right thing. So I feel like I had a lot of hope for him to be one of my favorite characters, but I feel like what you were saying before, he's kind of like there's not a lot of personality with the male characters. So I would say I enjoyed reading Ead's dialogue the most. What were you gonna say?
I thought Ead was gonna get together with Loth because at the beginning it shows that they're both kind of like different in the court. They're not like everyone else, and like it showed that they like struck up a bond really fast. And I was like, that's interesting. And then nothing after that.
Yep.
That was
thought 100% that they were gonna get together, and then I was like, oh no, you're not getting together. Okay.
And I was more into that than her and Sabran because I feel like it went from Sabran not liking her that much and Sabran being really cold to all of a sudden being like, actually, yeah, I'd come and be like, do these duties in my chamber. That's all. And then all of a sudden they start hooking up and they're actually in love. And you're like,
so
where's the time?
How I saw it was like, it's kind of like enemies to lovers, right? Like that whole trope where she's not part of the ladies of the bedchamber and like, they know that she's of a different faith. And she's like converted to the virtues of the seven. And so like you start seeing them talk with like Sabran kind of address her and it's very like a little bit hostile at first, but then like how Ead speaks with her and like her responses and she's always like very praising of the queen and like then I feel like she kind of opens up to her more and then she like brings her in on more like I think she becomes a lady of the bedchamber like with Rosalind and I forget the other
it was just such a fast switch from like, oh, I must like praise you and be the perfect person to like, no, you can't tell me what to do, I'm not your subject.
See, I don't know, I felt like for me I saw it through the whole way through whereas like Sabran kind of is opening up to her and she was like, oh, I can tell you these things because I know you'll speak truth to me, where as Rosalind they'll just say things to make me happy or so I feel like she kind of like builds this trust with her in a way and then but like Ead's kind of secretly deceiving her and then but then you can
how do you get over that?
Yeah, I don't know, I definitely feel like I saw it, but you're right, I guess in those moments where she's like, no, you can't tell me what to do, like I am your queen, I can. And
Yeah.
she's kind of like calling her on her bluffs a little bit. Because she's like, I think the scene we're talking about is when she's grieving the loss of her child. And I just feel like they at that point like had this like understanding, but I don't know. Yeah, it's kind of tiptoeing on thin ice because she is still a queen and she still could keep to her word that like she could act on her word, but I don't know. That's just that was like my point.
I also hated at the ending, like apparently like she builds this whole story about how they're so in love and they want to be together and then they're just like, okay, we're gonna go do our own duties and come back in 10 years.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, that's an important one to talk about. Yeah, because Sabran is like, I have things I need to do as queen, and now that we're no longer running under the assumption that I need to produce an heir for the good of like the planet, we need to figure out democracy or something. And it's like, I got to do stuff for the Priory, so we'll meet back in 10 years. Yeah, Christine's right. That's how it ends.
It's like, oh, okay. Like if I was in love with someone, I would not be like, yeah, for 10 years. I'd be like,
maybe it was just
try and work this out a little bit more.
Maybe it was a heat of the moment thing. Like maybe they weren't in love because I don't know. I envisioned in my mind that Sabran was gonna sacrifice wholly for the good of the queendom, and then Iyad like finds her dead somewhere, and it's all like emotional and sad, and
that would be so much more fulfilling as an ending.
She like dies in her arms or something. Like I don't know.
That's what I wanted.
Yeah, but and then
it didn't matter if just one of them died.
Yeah. Some main character, like any one of them, really.
Or like severely maimed. Like
Nicholas doesn't even die, does he?
Leg or something.
No, he doesn't.
Somebody has to lose a leg.
Go be a professor. Like everyone gets their happy ending.
Yeah, I think Nicholas
gets
the
exception that they have to wait 10 years.
Yeah.
Huh. With Sabran, I and like and Iyad actually, I felt like they the author was so intent on making strong female characters that she was like scared. It seemed like she was scared of making them seem like emotional at all or like any kind of humanizing thing. So she made them, you see like the inner thought process, and she made them feel like really cunning and strong and like always a step ahead. And it became like too void of personality or too void. I don't like name a feature of Sabran that isn't like her being a queen. Like other than fear. Like the only states of being are like stoic queenness and like fear and anxiety.
Yeah.
She's like the only one who, like, I feel like what you're saying is right, maybe in terms of like Iyad, I never really feel any emotion other than like, I'm just here to serve my queen. Like maybe Sabran, she's expressing her like fears in terms of like she can't sleep. She's worried about like the awakening of these draconic beings, and so I don't know if that's like a little bit of emotion there, but like, do you know what I mean? Yeah, she's kind of like a stoic queen, but then Iyad's more like, okay, I'm just here to serve my queen, always here to just do the right thing. And
but like that's what I mean. She has no personality outside of like being the queen and like upholding virtuedom. And outside of that, the parts where she's opening up to Iyad are just her fears, are the things that she's scared of messing up on. But other than that, she doesn't really get in there. That's what I mean. There was no like organic buildup of their relationship. It's just like, I can talk to you about this, therefore I love you. That's what it has.
Or any like comedic relief in the dialogue anywhere. I don't remember. Like,
I think that's what is missing to the characters is like if they all had a little bit of a sense of humor.
Yeah,
that would be nice.
Yeah,
give a bit more dimension to them.
I think maybe Nicolas Roos was the only one who was supposed to be like possibly a little bit. I don't really know if it was like comedic relief, but he has the most kind of angst.
Yeah.
Cool. I honestly think we've done a good job, but I feel like there's so much.
This book a lot
in here. 840-page book without being scatterbrained.
What would you guys rate this on our scale of 5?
I feel like I can't until I finish it, but from what I got so far, I was probably gonna rate it maybe like a 3 out of 5.
Okay.
But I had to finish it. So.
I don't know. I think I'd give it maybe like a 2.5. Like I appreciated all the world building, but it was too fleshed out in the wrong ways, and then not fleshed out enough in ways that would have made it more interesting. I think it definitely should have been broken up.
Mm-hmm. I'd probably give it like 3.5, a little bit more, because I did really enjoy the world building.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it went on. I feel like we needed a lot of that, but it could have been broken up into different sections. But yeah, it should have been like, this would make a really good trilogy, I think.
Absolutely.
And yeah, I like what you were saying before, Sophie, about having like more of like the two, like the fire and the like starlight, and focus that more, even if you didn't want to make it a trilogy.
Mm-hmm.
Like making those 2 books that way
Mm-hmm.
would have made it a lot stronger.
Making it a trilogy, I think, would make, like you were saying, making it stronger, because there's a lot of aspects to this book that are really interesting and grabbed my attention. I really did get a sense of being immersed in a world where I was like interested to learn more. But I think maybe just because it's so big, it's almost like, I don't know, it's a weird mind trick thing where it's like kind of exhausted trying to get to the end, where it just never feels like you get to the end, right? Well,
yeah,
literally on my end, but do you know what I mean? Like, I think maybe if it was split up, or maybe even a duology, 2 books.
I think 3 would have been good, because like,
yeah,
as we know, I tend to read most of these books in one sitting, and I read this in 3 sittings. So like, that's 3 books.
well, there you go.
we do it how I read.
Yeah, it's kind of a thing in fantasy where things are just trilogies, and maybe that's because it works.
Because you have to do that. It's like 1 book for world building, 1 book to like actually have your plot, and then a book to flush out the ending, where it's not just this happy ending, oh, we're gonna wait 10 years and like everything's fine.
I think also with split up books, she would have benefited a lot from having like, this is 5 years later, this is like 2 months later, like something where you're like splitting up the time more, so that you don't feel like you're just rushing, and you're like, okay, now they've done this, and you're like, oh my gosh, now she has to travel all the way back, and for some reason we're going to get taken through the whole traveling experience. I don't care, nothing happens in the traveling that's like, okay, it was hard, just tell us when she gets there. I don't want to read all this in between. I'm tired. So
the pacing of the book could have been, it was pretty much just chapter to chapter, wall to wall.
And once the scale of the story started getting bigger and bigger, and you're connecting all the dots, the different places, I think she had too much focus on details that didn't matter in different sections, and she could have just been like, okay, and now we're in the north, like you don't need to explain the detail, just say she traveled and it's 3 weeks later. I don't want to hear the details because nothing happened in between.
There was, though, I thought, I'm trying to find it, I don't know if you guys had it in the ebook, but they did have like at the back of this one like a timeline of like everything that happened. Let me see if I can find it. And I thought that was pretty useful after. Yeah, so it's like it's literally a timeline, and it's like BC2, the first great eruption of Dreadmount, the nameless one emerges. And then it has this wonderful background, which is really useful in understanding what had happened. But then it just jumps to like the Priory of the Orange Tree begins.
I'm wondering if like George's books for Game of Thrones, I'm wondering if they have a timeline, because I feel like this kind of stuff is really great for people who get really nerdy and want to know like everything about a world. So I think having like a timeline like this where you have to scroll back to
like, why couldn't she do the timeline with and include the Priory of the Orange Tree? Like the Priory of the Orange Tree starts. No, there's a lot that happened in here. Could I have a timeline for this book? And like,
so, but in terms of the experience of just like experiencing the book from front to back, without having to like flip to a timeline or keep flipping to a glossary of terms and the map, like I guess that's just like what high fantasy is.
Yeah, I was okay with it.
Yeah,
what I did not understand is what what's his name is from the Priory, Arquith. What is he?
The creature thing?
Yeah.
The like magic wolf that talks and can carry huge loads and just kind of does
Yeah.
whatever the story needs him to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What is that?
He's like part horse where you can just ride him around and he's super fast.
Yeah.
And he also talks. Oh,
Like,
Jack,
that's
did you
not
not
in the
get to this part?
No. Please.
Yeah, it's like he adds like magic horse, dog, wolf, who
That's
does
cool.
stuff that's important to the plot.
And like runs with her so she can get back to the castle.
And he dies, doesn't he?
Does he?
Doesn't he? I feel like he's like, you go ahead and I'm gonna hold off the people hunting you from the Priory. I can't really remember. I feel like he gets hurt or something.
No, because then she gets like she gets.
Oh, you're right. No, he makes it. Okay, he makes it.
And he like lays across her and is like, oh no. But then she's fine.
Oh.
Everything works out so perfectly.
Yeah, it's a pretty thick plot armor on our main people.
Yeah, like he could have died. That would have at least been something.
Yeah.
But also, I would like to know really, like, and what is he? He's an Ichnuman? Ichnuman? Is that a regular fantasy term? I've never heard that word before.
I've never heard of it. We're gonna Google it. It's a type of wasp apparently in real life.
I don't know. I was like, I don't know what this is, and like, so yeah, he just comes and like fixes everything again too.
Mm-hmm.
Worked out too nicely.
Yeah.
So who would we recommend then? Like, would you recommend this book? If you like, I mean, I think it's a very unique book in fantasy. Would you say, Christine, you read a lot of fantasy?
Yeah, I think if you were like into like Lord of the Rings, it kind of reminds me of Lord of the Rings in terms of writing and just how it plays out, but roles flipped where it's the strong female characters. I feel like you might like this book. I could recommend it to someone who really is into that like more political landscape, who still likes happy endings. If you want a realistic book, don't read this.
Yeah. What about you, Soph? Would you say you recommend it or not?
I don't know.
It's like, do you read a lot of fantasy, Sophie?
I read a little bit of fantasy. Yeah, I mean, like in terms of it being a fantasy novel, I feel like the magic system in this book wasn't really well explained. And the magic sequences, when there was the big fight between like the witch and like Priory magic, it was also like half a page. And the descriptors of it were like, she threw a fireball, she like deflected it with light, and then like someone died. And I was like, oh, okay.
There could be so much more. And like, why isn't magic more part of this thing other than like some people kind of fear it because of like the Lady of the Woods, but then like they're clearly doing magic, like, but you're only doing it in secret. And like,
and the fact that Tane can only do magic because she has the thing sewn in her side, whereas like if Iad eats like the fruit, she can produce it herself.
Oh, but then Tane can produce magic when she has eaten the fruit.
Oh, that's right. She also gets but that's an orange fruit. I feel like star magic should have its own thing.
Yeah. Where they can connect with it. But I guess maybe that, I don't know.
Yeah, they don't like that. It's not fully fleshed out. So in terms of like fantasy things of that, like if that's the kind of thing that you're reading it for, that kind of like fantastical world building, like I don't know. I don't know if I'd recommend it for that.
Yeah. And I guess like having it be a one-off book, she can't really continue the story to maybe explain more of these elements. Like again, like maybe okay, in a first book of a trilogy, if it's a little vague, okay, maybe, but you have time then to continue on like some of these kind of holes in the magic system. So
yeah, I think if you wanted something that was just like a more political book with a touch of fantasy, it'd be fine. Where you wanted strong female characters and did not care about having good male characters or comedic relief. Okay. But if you
With
wanted
some
like
cool, like I did like the dragons. I feel that's the second book now that we've had dragons be. Was in House of Dragons, did they speak? They did.
at the end they did
Yeah.
because she broke the chains.
Yes. So that's the second book now that we've read where dragons can communicate with humans.
Which I like. I mean, that is a thing I like, so I'm a fan of
If we like that, then yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
And I did like that you had like this duality where you had like good dragons and bad dragons, because you don't often see that. It's always like, oh, there's these old wise dragons.
yeah.
And like I could kind of see like these bad dragons are like, no, we're gonna unite under one ruler because you all can't agree. I kind of identified with him a little bit, where it's like, okay, I get where you're coming from.
So I have to say, when there was the evil dragon that was attacking Sabran and was like in front of her, and she was out on the top of the castle like defying him. I can't remember exactly what he says, but he kind of sounds like whiny or like immature. Like the dragon, it wasn't like this big imposing thing. He was like getting annoyed that she was not bowing down, and I'm like,
yeah,
like this is like, you're like a terrible minion. Like I don't know, he just seemed like not intimidating dragon. He just seemed like a 13-year-old bully who happened to be in a dragon's body and like would kill you, but like you'd be like, seriously, I'm getting killed by this dragon. Like I'd be embarrassed.
Like whatever.
Yeah, like did he even kill any civilians? Like I feel like he just comes in, he wraps himself like that. I think that's actually the book cover. He like holds onto this building and he's addressing Sabran.
No, the book cover is the blue one.
Is that does that happen in another part of the book?
No.
Yeah.
See, I thought that book cover was the scene,
because we had the one when he first comes and is like, bow down to me, and then we had the other one where she gets
maybe yes
open.
Okay.
There's the two.
But I thought the blue dragons were the good ones, and the black or the red, I don't know, it's kind of,
they were different
they're
colors.
described as whole.
There was the white one. The white one was the one that sliced her open, because that one I ended up being going to the woods who could change forms. In case you didn't know that. Oh, Jacqueline, I don't think you know like the weirdest part.
Please tell me. Spoil it.
The Lady of the Woods is the like high witch or whatever. Cabela, is that her name? Cabela?
Oh yeah.
She was the original like queen, and Sabran is like her daughter down the line.
Oh, okay.
And it was conceived through witchcraft because she fell in love with the man that she raised as a son. So then she tricked him into thinking that she was Cleonoid, so that he would like have a son with her or have a child with her. And that is how the queendom started. And that's why they only ever have daughters. And they all look the same because they all look like her in her true form. And she can change forms into said High Western and attack her. And that's why she gets weird dreams, Sabran.
Oh yeah, okay. That clears a lot of things up. Weird.
See, like that's another big thing that was not, like, you're just like, okay, just another thing to be learning about. Like I took notes. I legit took notes during this. I couldn't keep all these things. I was like, okay, well now there's a witch. Okay, and now the witch is important, actually. It's quite important.
After like day 2 of like me reading this, I was like, I should have taken notes. But there's no point now.
Sophie, when you just said there was a witch, it just reminded me of that video clip of those two adult guys. The Wicked Witch of the East, bro, right? And it was her sister. Do you know what we're talking about, Christine?
No, but that works. Wicked Witch.
Okay, I'll have to show you it later. It's pretty funny. But I feel like that their argument is like how I'm trying to think of this book and all the plot lines right now.
I think there was too many plot lines in this book for having it as a single book.
Yeah.
But, you know,
Does quick question.
Things interesting.
Does Sabran ever like address Iad about how like Sabran ever come to light of how like Iad's faith is the real truth?
It's not though.
And does she ever like
They're
address
both, but they're
like,
both wrong.
They're
That's
both
the
wrong.
thing.
they're both wrong? Okay.
Because they
Well, I'm
didn't
gonna
know
have to-
that this witch was the original and tricked him.
Oh, okay.
Mm.
So it
They're
makes
both wrong.
okay. And they never like address it, being like, wow.
They kind of do. They both say at the end the 10 years they have to go tell the truth.
Oh
And,
yeah.
like, so it's like, oh, we're going to address it, but we haven't actually done anything about it.
Makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, is there anything else you guys, we're at 8:00 now. Is there anything else you guys want to discuss, like pressing or?
No.
I think that's it for me.
Cool. Well, it was a great pick, Christine. I'm definitely gonna have to I'm still gonna read the audiobook.
Okay. I was gonna say, did I pick this one? I wasn't the one who put this on the list originally, though. Who put this?
Wasn't it one of the books that you had bought, like in your stack of books?
Yeah, because it seemed interesting. Yes,
Yeah.
That's why.
So then
I was like, but I didn't originally find it because you had told me about it.
I think I told you about it, and you went out and bought a bunch of fantasy books, and that was one of them. So
yeah, I still have that stack.
Cool. Well, next
month,
you got the yay!
Look
Next month we're doing Harry Street.
My sister might read this book.
Really?
Very shiny.
Yeah, Harry's Trees. It's for those of you who would like to join us. It's about a widower. Widow.
A widower. It's a man.
Yeah.
Widower.
A widower. Okay. Who has lost his wife and is trying to deal with it, and like meets a little girl and something where they build a tree house, and it's supposed to be very uplifting and happy.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I'm curious to how that will be when it starts off as a widower. But
yeah. So basically, me and Christine chatted, and I was like, I just want something happy and uplifting due to, everything going on in the world. So if you want to read something that's like lighter in tone, then you should join us in February.
And it should be a lot easier because, like, look how much smaller it is.
Much smaller, manageable.
Manageable book. Also, like, this is, you guys can't tell, it's really thick pages. So
perfect.
Okay, so because it looks kind of thick.
Still kind of looks thick, but like those are some thick pages and like a slightly bigger font than the Priory.
Okay.
You want to show the one for March too?
Yeah.
So we've already picked. Went from uplifting to feeling like something completely apocalyptic.
Also, like, I didn't know because I read some reviews of this and like read the description. I was like, okay, like it'll be a little emotional. And then like I told one of my friends I was reading, and she's like, prepare to cry. You will be devastated.
I want to cry.
I've heard it's an amazing book though.
Yeah, and there's a movie too, which I might watch after. So good things.
Love when there's
uplifting movies. And then like when we're full of hope, then we'll cry.
Crush it right after. I actually think it's a really good pick because I have a feeling like dystopian books are gonna come back into like fashion or whatever.
Yeah.
My friend who also has a really good book channel and Instagram, she uploaded a photo of, it was kind of like a mosaic of all dystopian books that were really popular from like 2010 to 2014, and I don't know, I have a feeling like dystopian books are going to come back because I've taken a break from them for a while, and then now I'm feeling like, okay, I want to get back into
I think I'd be glad to take a break.
Apocalyptic.
Like, this is too much like reality, and now they've accepted it, and they're like, well, what did other people imagine? So yeah,
I'm excited.
Join us next month for Harry's Trees.
Awesome. Okay. Awesome, guys.
Thanks so much, guys.
Enjoyed having 3 people to this month.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.